was grooving, and that was when he could have sworn the room was moving. But that was only in his mind. He was sailing. He never really seemed to notice vision failing. Cause that was all part of the high. The sweat was pouring. He couldn't take it. The room was exploding. He might not make it. Please, children, would you listen? Just ain't where it's at. You won't remember what you're missing, but down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back. They were standing, everybody in a circle, the whole family, listening to the preacher's words. Sis was crying. She alone held a secret about his dying. Tears falling to earth, and maybe her fault. He was so trusting, God only knew why. They were dusting. He's gonna be the death of you children. It just ain't where it's at. Oh. You won't remember what you're missing, but down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back to back to back to back from. Believe me, sister, don't mean nobody no good. Take it. The room was exploding. You might not make it. Children, it's hard to listen, but I ain't trying to run your life. Oh. Might just seem like one more good time, but down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back. Children know it's hard to listen, but I ain't trying to run your life, believe me. Don't mean nobody no good nowhere, and down some dead end streets there ain't no turning back to back to back or away from. Please, children, would you listen to me? I'm afraid I'm trying to run.
Check one, check one, check one. Check mic, check mic, check 1, 2. One moment for me, please, family. Oops. Okay. All right. Peace and love to everybody. I hope everyone's doing well this evening. Just one moment for me. I got to respond to a text message. All right. That's that. All right. How's everybody doing this evening? I hope the title of the show for episode 6, Moments with Malik. I hope the title didn't scare or doesn't scare anyone away. It's relative. Um, if you are familiar with me, if you've been riding with me since the beginning of me being on these airways and in these YouTube streets, you know that everything I put together is with much consideration and thought. Every bit of it goes into my thumbnails, every bit of it goes into the titles that I put together for these shows. So, yes, the title of tonight's show, episode 6 for Moments with Malik, is Stupid White Men, the Arrogance of U.S. White Psychopathy. And I am going to stay on this subject because it is important. I come here, I have a mic, I have a voice, and I have the burning desire to teach. I have the burning desire to come in and share information and be responsible for what it is that I'm sharing to all who comes in and participates in these shows that I provide. So, yes, the title, Stupid White Men, the Arrogance of U.S. White Psychopathy, and the terminology of white psychopathy is going to be a continued conversation if you're coming to either the health walk or Moments with Malik. I will continue to express the definition of what I mean by white psychopathy. It is important that we stay focused on the existential threat that marries or ties into the historical behaviors of a small group of people who has allowed their arrogance to run amok and threaten the total survival and sovereignty of this country and quite frankly of the entire world. So I am going to continue to have a discussion that is focused on this threat. When I do these shows, I don't do them for kicks and giggles. My intention is to provide some meaningful information that alarms us with some factual, truthful, historical, contemporary information that prepares us for strategies of survival going forward. And as I mentioned, I will continue to do what's necessary to provide that material. So I hope everyone is doing well tonight. I intend to step through some information, and by the end of this show, the title that I have chosen for this show and the information that I provide to support this theory or this thesis or this argument will have more clarity, or clarity will be brought. I'll say it that way. Clarity will be brought to marry up with the title of this show. And just for the sake of the argument, the title that I have, Stupid White Men, came from a text or a book that's been on my bookshelf that was penned by Michael Moore. He had written the book Stupid White Men in 2001, right after the United States invaded Afghanistan. Shortly after 9/11. I just want to make sure I have the copyright correct. Yeah, 2001. And some of the information that I have provided or that I will discuss tonight may not be for the weak at heart, may not be for those who can easily, whose stomachs can become queasy when they're hearing information that may not align with the reality. We call that cognitive dissonance. But I'm here to do a job. I'm here to fulfill a mission. I'm here to do what has been in my spirit to do. And I will do it to the best of my ability. On a side note, if you're in the DMV area, you're looking at the up and down. I mean, this weather happens to be quite interesting, to say the least. One day last we were in the 80s, and today we're down in the 20s, and it's been quite cold. Someone once referred to this as the bipolarism of the bipolarism weather of the DMV. I say bipolarism, bipolar and schizophrenic weather of the DMV. But yes, it is cold, and from what I understand, it's cold all over in the Mid-Atlantic states, and it's cold up north too. But don't fret, don't stress. Spring is right around the corner. All right, so let's get started. The last show that I had done, I was talking about how it might have been 2 weeks. I mean, last month. If I know it was episode 4 of the Moments with Malik, and I was mentioning or referencing the miseducation of the Caucasian, and I was deliberate in putting together that title, and I went through the process of what significance and what benefit it has for those who are in power, what a benefit it is to them to miseducate the masses of the people. When you are deliberately miseducated, that creates a condition in the minds of the people to accept information that benefits those who are devising a plan to continue to run and be in control of the collective. We know that highly critical thinkers, educated people, people who read, people who are analytical in as a have the ability to be analytical and um, the gift of a free thinker, the gift of a critical thinker. When you have those skills, a very critical skill to have. When you have developed those skills, you aren't as easily or readily accepting information that's spoon fed to you. So the objective of those who are in control when they have the will or the objective to miseducate the people, they're doing it with the purpose of keeping the masses of the people in check or in line. They normally refer to that as sheeple because sheep will follow you off the cliff if you allow them to get far enough. So in this episode of Moments with Malik, I wanted to give more context to what I was referring to as the masses being miseducated. So I went down into my archives and I had spoken on this topic before about the education system and what how the education system benefits those who are in power. If you have any historical reference to the education system that was created here in this country, you will know that it was modeled after the education system that was in Prussia. It was titled the Prussian education system. Prussia was a part of one time a part of Germany. And as the history goes, there was the Prussian education system that was created to prepare the Prussian citizens for obedience. So they thought that the people in Prussia were not obedient. They wanted them to have a military type attitude or a way of living or a lifestyle where they were easily accepted of orders and directives. So they created a system, an education system that with the structured curriculum that prepared the young children for that. As of course as they matriculated through the system and became adults, they were already trained well enough to be easily obedient to directives or orders. They call it a military style education system. The education system was created because of the conflicts and wars that Prussia was fighting, or Germany and Prussia was fighting with French or the Napoleonic era, where the French soldiers were a lot less refined. Um, to say the least, they were considered to be barbaric because they had very limited education, and because they had very limited education, they were easily controlled. But the Germans or the Prussians were losing battles in wars with the French because the soldiers have demonstrated themselves to not question orders. You would give them an order or a directive, and they wouldn't question it because they had no ability of critical thinking skills, and because they were more obedient than the Prussian soldiers who questioned everything. They contribute to the undisciplined behaviors of the Prussian soldiers. They contribute that to the education because you're being analytical, and one of the things that you don't want to be in a battle or a war is you don't want to analyze your situations in lieu of the entire unit, because when when you have an aggressor upon you, you want to find ways to be able to push that aggressor back. And if you're questioning orders because you are sensing that your existence is being threatened, you're going to walk away and say, I'm not want to deal with this. So they created a system that made their soldiers or made their citizens more obedient. That was called the Prussian education system. The basic foundations of a generic Prussian primary education system were laid out by the originator. His name was Frederick the Great, and it was started in 1763. And as I said, it was for the sole basis of being able to make the citizens more obedient. Prussia was among the first countries in the world to introduce what was identified as tax-funded and generally compulsory primary education. Compulsory means that it was mandated. So you had to matriculate through these schools, and of course, they created the kindergarten, which is kinder, children, garden, or place where you grow children or develop children. That's where the word kindergarten, it was a German word. That's where the word kindergarten came from. And they matriculated through certain levels until they reached a level where they were where they were considered prepared to graduate. So, in the efforts of being able to model that education system, the United States, Herman Mann was the person who brought this education system here. He studied it in Prussia for a number of years before he brought it to the West, and he created portions of that education system and implemented it into what is today the modern American education system, where it was preparing people for perpetual servitude and obedience. Infused in that education was also religion. But the purpose was to create a permanent working class, a permanent class that was considered to be the upper class, that those were your doctors and your lawyers and, the other folks, scientists, other folks who were considered those who were the upper echelon of society. And there was only the potential was that there was only a specified number of people that would be allowed to be a part of that system or be a part of that class. Everyone else, the middle and the lower class, were um, destined, based upon the education system, to be a permanent working class. Those who were obedient, and this also included the military. So where am I going with this? You've seen over the last few decades the continued decline of American education. And let me just segue for a minute before I go over this, because I have my notes here. I'm trying to make sure I stay within the structure of my notes. This is for our community. Black folk, African American, Negroes, whatever name you want to identify yourself as, American, African descendants of slaves, whoever you call yourselves, or whatever, how way you identify yourself as today. I'm asking you to do this for me. Stop referring to, or stop using the word, not referring to. Could you please stop using the word white supremacy? We need to completely remove that word out of our vernacular, because I said before, there's nothing superior about these people at all. And those who continually define this system, or that we're living under, as white supremacy, that gives those who honestly believe that they are supreme, than more supreme than others, or that they are supreme persons on the planet, that gives them the jolt or the confidence within themselves to believe that they are more superior than others. So let's stop using, when we are defining this system, we can call it, as I said, white psychopathy, we can use that. We can call it white nationalism. We can call it whatever we want. But please stop using the word white supremacy, because they're not supreme. And the system that we are governed under is not supreme. And you are beginning to see the chinks and the cracks and the fissures in this system that is coming close to it totally toppling. So let's use some other terminologies. Let's use some other words. But with white supremacy, we can just stop using that, take it out of our vernacular, because it's a falsification of the reality that we live in. Because, as I said, the people aren't supreme. So I digress. We were talking about the education system of the United States, and it continues to spiral downward. This is just some statistics here. Literacy statistics. 50% of the U.S. adults read below a 6th grade level. 50%. So there's roughly 340 million people in the United States. Now, these numbers may be skewed a bit. I got them from I can't remember where I pulled these statistics. I think it was a national education website that I pulled these statistics down from. With 50% of the U.S. adult population reads below Oh, I got it right here. The National Literary Institute is where I pull these numbers down from. They read below a sixth grade level. They're barely in middle school, reading on a sixth grade level. The average American reads at a seventh or eighth grade level. In addition to that, 44% of adults do not read at all. Very rarely do they take the time to read one book in a year. Why is this important? If you don't read, you are lacking the analytical skills that is necessary. You are lacking the critical skills that is necessary for you to make firm and informed decisions based upon yourself, your family, and the community that you lived in, that you're living in. Reading is important because most information that we consume as a species or a human species on this planet is written. The literary arts is a form that allows you to become expressive. It allows you to have an understanding of other people's ideologies and their thoughts. It also strengthens your ability to think. Your brain is a muscle. It's one of the things that it continues to keep that muscle growing is for you to exercise it and to read. So on an average, adults read less than 16 minutes per day. And it's probably even less now because we have these devices that are easily accessible to us that allows us to scroll through information and videos and that are 2 and 3 minute or 10-second videos, and for us to become entertained. And this is where most of our time today is being consumed. So even the books now are on audiobooks where someone is narrating the books for us. That creates passivity in our brain. On the flip side of that, of us not reading, so that means we're not reading books, we're not reading magazines, and most importantly, we are not reading newspapers, because newspapers are, even though the print media today has become has sold us out to some degree and has become just as propagandized as uh, the media networks that are out there, and they're providing or presenting information on a slant. And I'll get into that in just 1 minute, in one moment. One of the things that continues to be free and fair has been newspapers. Now, you don't have to necessarily read the newspapers that are printed in this country. I mean, with the internet now, you can reach out to other areas, other parts of the world, and read. You have access to those newspapers as well, or news articles, uh, news magazines from other parts of the world. And they even if they are written or produced in a language that does not write in English, they have translators or translated copies that are out there as well. So you can get a real or well-rounded uh, level of information that assists you in becoming a critical thinker. But when we do not read, that skill is not developed or is not cultivated, as I said. So on the flip side of that, the average American spends about 2.5 to 3 hours a day watching TV. This includes state-run media today. So a majority of the people who are getting information, rather than it being read in a newspaper or having it available to you in an unbiased format, you are sitting in front of a TV. Fox News comes to mind. ON Network, CNN, MS Now, and all the other media networks or outlets that are there that is providing information. Now, some of them are pretty good. Some of the journalists there, they are providing unbiased opinions. Some of them, every now and again, will give you information that is unbiased. But for the most part, you're being spoon-fed. You are getting a continued diet, or continuously being spoon-fed propaganda that is provided with a very an extreme biased opinion about things that are happening in this country and throughout the world. So you're consuming that day in and day out for on an average of 2.5 to 3 hours a day. Having conversations with people who, if you go on to some of these streaming platforms or some of these places like you can choose X, which I don't even think I even have I think I deleted the app. I don't even have an account with X after Elon Musk bought that out, and which used to be Twitter, but now X. Once he bought that out, I deleted my app and deleted my my account, because I knew that then that once someone with that opinion was going to be in control of a media. Peace and love, beloved. How you doing? Thank you for being with me tonight. I'd love to see you there. Thank you. Who are being a part of that platform are going to be very biased in the information that they allow to flow across that network, or excuse me, across that platform. So, I immediately deleted my account. But if you look at the conversations that are being had on some of these streaming platforms or social media platforms, Threads, maybe TikTok, X, Facebook, or what have you, you will see conversations with people who have been spoon-fed information where they're constantly regurgitating information that they heard on these biased networks. Beloved, Facebook been the op. What did brother Professor Griff said? Facebook is the FBI do it yourself FBI something. I can't remember what he, but he indicated that we put so much information out there on that platform that FBI needs to just sit back and just use what we place or what we incriminate ourselves with each and every day with how we strategize or how we just blabbermouth everything on that social media platform. So yeah, Facebook been the ops for a long time. But looking at some of the conversations that are being had, the information is um, replete with talking points. They get these talking points off of these platforms, these media platforms that they listen to, and they continuously regurgitate the information, and you can't have a respectful debate or argument with them because they continuously regurgitating the information that they've heard on these platforms, which gets frustrating at times. The but that is because again that we have lost the skill of being able to read and be analytical and be critical thinkers. This is from the chapter, and just for the sake of what I said, this book, Stupid White Men. Now, as I said, I didn't make this title up. This is a book that was written by Michael Moore, which is a very funny book. The way he penned this book, his satire and his humor is pretty funny. But he was talking about, of course, he titled "The Stupid White Men" because he was dealing with the Bush administration at the time that he had written a book. So let me read this 2 paragraphs. And he's talking again about the poorly educated people, the poorly educated country. As a matter of fact, he said, "How did I learn these statistics? Well, I read it." He's talking about some statistics that he was reciting. He says, "How did I learn this statistic? Well, I read it. And now you've read it. So we've already eaten into the mere 99 hours a year, an average, an American adult spends reading a book compared with the 1,460 hours watching television. I've also read that only 11% of the American public bothers to read a daily newspaper. And this is being read beyond the funny pages or the used car ads. But if you live in a country where 44 million can't read and perhaps close to another 200 million can read but usually don't, well, friends, you and I are living in one very scary place, a nation that not only churns out illiterate students, but goes out of its way to remain ignorant and stupid." Moving down, it comes as no surprise that to foreigners that Americans who love to revel in their stupidity would elect a president who rarely reads anything, including his own briefing papers, and thinks Africa is a nation, not a continent, an idiot leader of an idiot nation in our glorious land of plenty. Less is always more when it comes to taxing any lobe of the brain with intake of facts and numbers, critical thinking, or the comprehension of anything that isn't, well, sports. So one thing that we can and have proven ourselves to be a part of and very dialed into, very focused on, are statistics in sports. And brothers, I know that the NCAAs are coming up, and I know many of us are going to be sitting in front of the TV watching the men's and women's play basketball in the NCAA tournament. And we're going to have our NCAA tournament pools going, who's going to be in the Final Four, who's going to be, whether it's men or women, who's going to be the NCAA champions. We know that that's going to be a part of, that's going to be consumed within our next 2 weeks. And we'll be able to cite all the statistics. We'll be able to know who the players on these certain teams, and what their prospects are going to be being drafted into the NBA. Another plantation for rich white men. All of this, and even and sandwiched in between all this, you have the NFL is gearing up for its annual draft. And, they have the numbers of the players who are coming out of college, and they can read, they can cite their potential as an NFL player, and uh, going to the combines, and they looking at their 40 times, and stripping them down to their draws, and looking at the physique. I mean, everything that you would imagine, the bullshit that was happening, the human the humanization that took place for us as a people when we were being brought here from the left, and from our homeland, on those slave kidnapping ships. And they were looking at our teeth and looking at the physique, the men. They were looking at the women as well, to see what type of shape they were in. And all of that takes place in the NFL Columbine. But we are dialed into that, and we can cite and recite information, statistics ad nauseum, because that's what we have become accustomed to doing. It is the most, and it is the safest way for us to exist without creating a disturbance. But when you become analytical and seeing the things that are happening in this country, and you begin to voice your opinion about that, you become a threat. But the only way to prepare yourself to have those arguments and have those debates is to pick up some resources and read what's happening in the country and throughout the entire world. So why is this important? When you don't read, you become susceptible to propaganda. The propaganda that is always perpetuated and promoted in this country is patriotism. Not a day goes by, particularly in this current administration, where you will hear those within the administration talking about who's a patriot and who's not a patriot. It seems that patriotism seems to be the barometer that people that white folk use to determine who is malcontent and who is going to be obedient. So if you say that if you say to those who are around you and vocalize that you are a patriot, you okay with them, because they know that you ride with them, and anything that they do, whether it's illegal or inhumane, that you're cool with. It also indicates that you are a soft white nationalist, riding around in your trucks with your USA flags, and every opportunity you get, you're talking about US, you're chanting USA, USA, USA. In addition to that, you are in your willingness to declare your patriotism, you have bought into this idea and this narrative that United States is the greatest country in the world. Well, who you are comparing it to? Most of you haven't even been outside of the borders of your state. Some of you haven't even gone as far as your city or your town. So how are you making a reference or making a declaration that the United States is the greatest nation in the world? Okay, well, yeah, you can have that opinion, but is it fact? You haven't been to any other place to make that determination, or to even make that declaration. You're going by what has been spoon fed to you as a citizen of this country. And it is embarrassing to me as a black man to hear other black people talking about, or other African people talking about, well, this is the greatest nation in the world. You are a people whose ancestors were brought here in chains, and now you are drinking the Kool-Aid. The hell's gotten into you? but it identifies and signifies that you have seen or that you have allowed yourself to be spoon-fed information that buys into the narrative of this false reality of superiority, because we know that that terminology was created solely because of this being a predominantly white nation. So whenever you have to start to read between the lines, start to listen and hear things, see things with your third eye, or listen with your third ear, as ancestor Baba Joe Madison would say quite often, listen with your third ear. Because when you're talking about this being the greatest nation in the world, and you ain't been no other place to make that comparative analysis, what are you comparing it to? This is not your own opinion. This is not empirical evidence or information that you are consuming so that you can make this critical thought yourself. You are being spoon-fed this information. And because you're being spoon-fed the information that has a history of abusing and oppressing people for years, that lets me know that you are drinking the Kool-Aid. You're talking about Iran has abused its citizens. And that's the reason why you've gone. And again, of course, we know that it's a lie now, but the regime was a regime that was abusing its people, abusing its citizens. Well, hell, you were abusing people for 400 years. How the hell you think we got here? So no, the country itself isn't the greatest nation in the world. It is a nation amongst many nations on the entire globe, and each person who are a part of another nation, another country, has the right to identify their country as being a great nation as well. But to be as arrogant enough to say, again, the arrogance of white psychopathy, to be arrogant enough to say that this is the greatest nation in the world, validates that you are suffering with white psychopathy. That translates to the illusion of white superiority. And before I step into the Iran war, I want to set this up because I'm about ready to deal with it, and I'm going to tie this up. It's not going to be a long day for me. I got my show next tomorrow. And of course, there's some other obligations that I have before I even get to that. For those who have been a part of this show tonight, I thank you again and blessing the platform, for coming in and listening to the words that I have to say, to hear what I am discussing tonight. And continue to be a part of the family, continue to show up, continue to support Moments with Malik, continue to support the Health Walk, continue to support Spiritual Pathways, Holistic Healing. Where am I? This is not going to be a long show. I'm going to try to end this at 9:30. Try to. I'm going to do my best. So if you can hang in with me, stick with me, stay with me. I'm going to try to end this at 9:30. There's a few things I want to step through, a few articles. But first, so this is I needed to set this table because what I was making a mention to or referencing, that when you are poorly educated, when you are not reading, when you are not exercising critical thought, you will fall for information that is being spoon-fed to you, that is nothing but to its bone propaganda. So we're dealing with this war now. And it is a war in spite of what these other idiots are saying, these other stupid white men are saying that are in the administration. It's a war. They've been fighting a war. Led by the most stupid white man this as the head of state that this country has ever known. So listen to this this video. This is Biff. I'll call him Biff because he acts like Biff. I don't know if you are familiar with was that Back to the Future, where one of the characters in the movie, his name was Biff, and he was the village idiot, so to speak, about as dumb as a box of rocks. This guy here, Pete Hegseth, Biff Hegseth, rivals. He rivals Biff from Back to the Future. But listen what he has to say.
In the press just can't stop. Allow me to make a few suggestions. People look up at the TV and they see banners, they see headlines. I used to be in that business. And I know that everything is written intentionally. For example, a banner or a headline, Mideast war intensifies, splashing on the screen the last couple of days, alongside visuals of civilian or energy targets that Iran has hit, because that's what they do. What should the banner read instead? How about Iran increasingly desperate? Because they are. They know it, and so do you, if it can be admitted. Or more fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better. Another example of a fake headline that I saw yesterday, war widening. Here's a real headline for you for an actual patriotic press. How about Iran shrinking, going underground? You see, Iran's leaders are hiding in bunkers and moving into civilian areas. The only thing that is widening is our advantage. Not to mention our Gulf partners stepping up even more, now going on the offense, and have always been with us on the defense with collective and integrated air defenses.
So this man made a reference about the type of information that's being disseminated in these news media outlets. He's frustrated or upset or whatever. Whatever, got his panties in a bunch, but he's disputing the information that's being reported. And of course, he singled out CNN, and CNN does what the CNN does, but again, you're talking about a person whose objective is to attack news media outlets that are broadcasting information on TV, because they know that for the majority of us, that's where we're getting our information from. We're getting our information from the TV, which tells a different story or is in complete and total contradiction to the narrative that they want to push on the people. Yes, they severely underestimated Iran. And because the information the information that's being reported is not aligned with the lie that they're trying to perpetuate or trying to promote to the people, they are frustrated with the news media outlets. Well, if you don't necessarily need to go to CNN, you can pick up a newspaper wherever you go across the country and throughout the world, and they'll tell you the same thing. Yes, the United States severely underestimated Iran. It mentioned something about Iran shutting down or cutting off the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz. I'm sorry, and he was saying that was falsely and grossly incorrect. Was it now? If you were preparing for, and if you understood based upon your intelligence that you knew that Iran was going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, you would have had a better reaction to it. Whereas now you see that there are the repercussions behind them doing that, where the gas prices are starting to slowly creep up. We're now at $120 a barrel, where it has the potential of reaching $200 a barrel, which is going to be felt in the pockets of the people here in this country and throughout the world. If you had prepared for that, if you were already preparing for the move that Iran was going to make by shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, you would have had a better plan in place to counteract that. So no, you sitting there lying, and the thing is that you're not talking to reporters who are going to give you an unbiased or going to give the citizens an unbiased a story about the things that are happening. You're talking to, or you are preaching to the choir. You're making these references in an echo chamber because the independent news media is you kicked out. You're making this press conference in the Pentagon, and you confiscated the credentials, the press credentials of others, of those who were in the press pool, who were given unbiased opinion, an unbiased story, counteracting or in complete and total contradiction to the bullshit that you putting out there. So you grossly underestimated what Iran is doing. And the war is expanding. Based on reports from March 2026, the Trump administration was accused of significantly underestimating Iran's ability to close down the Strait of Hormuz in response to U.S. military strikes, creating a critical bottleneck for global commerce. Key details regarding this situation include underestimation of risk, operational challenges, response to shutdown, strains with NATO, and internal disputes. Moving on, continuing on, I'm sorry. Shutdown of Hormuz Strait raises fears of soaring oil prices. The United States and Israel's war with Iran has spilled over into the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical energy choke points, prompting a surge in oil prices. Shipping through the strait, which carries 1/5 of oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas, has ground to a near halt amid Iranian attacks on oil tankers in the region. A commander in Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, said on Monday that the strait was closed and that any vessel attempting to pass through the waterway would be set ablaze. At least 5 tankers have been damaged. This as a reporting as of March 3rd. So this is a few weeks old. At least 5 tankers have been damaged, 2 personnel killed, and about 150 ships stranded around the strait, which separates Iran and Oman. Oil prices rose above the $79.40 per barrel on Monday, and this was as of March 3rd. This was 3 days after the war started, after hitting a $73 per barrel on Friday amid rising tensions in the lead up to Saturday's joint U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran. Traffic is down at least 80%. Michelle Bachman, a senior maritime intelligence analyst at Windward, told Al Jazeera, adding that the shipping industry had already been grappling with a huge spike in freight costs for routes out of the Middle East and the Gulf. So who's lying? Who's willing to stand up and tell the truth? Are you willing to begin to exercise your right to educate yourself and understand what's going on in this country so that you can prepare yourself for the downfall, because you have a stupid white man running the country now who lies all the time. U.S. unmet expectations in Iran fit a familiar pattern in the region. This is from News Analysis. The United States has a tendency to overestimate what political outcomes can be engineered using overwhelming military power while underestimating the fallout. This was stated by Caitlin Talmadge, a professor at Massachusetts at MIT, who specializes in Gulf security issues. Air power is the U.S. drug of choice. We love to believe that it can achieve big political effects and also big military effects. Yet the historical record doesn't support that. While President Trump and other top U.S. officials repeatedly boast that Iran's Air Force is extinct and its Navy sits at the bottom of the sea, analysts noted that the country was never expected to take on the United States in a direct confrontation using a conventional military. Instead, it relies on asymmetric warfare tactics designed to extend the war indefinitely until it hopes the cost saps the will of the Trump administration and Israel. Yes, you severely underestimated Iran. You are thinking that because you have all this so-called military power that you were going to come in and sweep through a country that has been in existence for over 5,000 years. They have a 5,000-year history. And you think that the resilience of the citizens of this country is going to just lay down and give up its existence to a baby? This is the arrogance of white psychopathy, because they believe that they have this military might, that they can come in and they can do whatever that their military allows them to do. But have you realized that you haven't won a war since World War II? You lost the war in Korea. You damn sure lost the war in Vietnam. You literally got your ass whipped in Vietnam with your arrogance, thinking that you can come in and do whatever you wanted to do with the Vietnamese. Afghanistan wasn't a cakewalk. And you were getting your butts beat in Iraq, even with your firepower. So what makes you think that a country that has a 5,000-year history, a country of 90 million people, 90 plus million people, who have been preparing for a potential conflict with this country and in Israel, by the way, for decades now, ever since Israel began to flex its muscle in Palestine, ever since then, Iran has been preparing for a potential conflict with Israel. We're talking about 30 plus years now. And I'm gonna get into what the the tactics that Netanyahu used to get the United States to buy into or to partner up to be a part of this war. But getting back to what I was saying about the Strait of Hormuz. So before I do this, because I'm getting ready to go into Trump now. And how he easily lies. And not only does he easily lie, he forgets that he lies. He forgets that he tells a lie that he forgets. Let me see if I can say this right. He lies, then he lies about the lie that he lied about, that he lied about the lie that he lied about. So he's too stupid to know that there's, in the technological age, that there's video all over the place of a story that he told, and then he turns around and a week or two later contradicts the shit that he talks about. So he's familiar with his director of the National Counterterrorism, Joe Kent, resigned. Now, Joe Kent, this guy is no angel. He's a patriot. He's a MAGA patriot at that. And, he wasn't, he's not a person whom, he's not the second coming of let me see if I can find the most liberal person. What was the John Kerry? When he was the one that ran for president against George Bush the second time. They have these highly liberal white men. Well, Joe Kent ain't that, but he is falling out with Trump because he spilling the beans and telling the people in his resignation that Iran wasn't a threat to anybody, and this is what he had written in his resignation. This is what Lawrence O'Donnell reported yesterday or Monday. But anyway, let's do the clip. This is what he's saying.
Signing in protest of Donald Trump's war. In true Trump administration style, Joseph Kent, Donald Trump's director of the National Counterterrorism Center, announced his resignation on social media, saying in his social media post and his resignation letter to Donald Trump, "I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation." To which Donald Trump said this.
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security.
Always? Always. Really? I always thought he was weak on security. Here's what Donald Trump said on social media when he appointed Joe Kent to be the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. A soldier, Green Beret, and CIA officer, Joe has hunted down terrorists and criminals since his entire adult life. Joe will help us keep America safe by eradicating all terrorism. And now that same Donald Trump says, I always said, I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. And no one proves Donald Trump to be a liar more effectively than Donald Trump. And so tonight, I suggest you take your pick about when Donald Trump was lying about Joe Kent, when he appointed him, or today when Joe Kent quit. Of course, when we're dealing with a pathological liar like Donald Trump, he could be lying both times. But Donald Trump has definitely caught himself in at least one lie about Joe Kent.
So what I'm doing here is I'm setting up the points of the argument that's showing to you that we have a group of people in this administration that behave and operate with this arrogance of, as I said, white psychopathy, but they're actually operating from a position of stupidity, thus the title Stupid White Men. So what white man could be more stupid than a man who completely and totally contradicts himself each and every time he opens up his mouth and speaks his first language, which is mendacity, lying all the damn time, and then forgets about the information or the statements that he makes either in news pressings or on his social media platform called Truth Social, or is it Truth So? Is it Truth Social? Wow. What a misleading contradiction there. He has a social media platform called Truth Social where he sits there and lies all the damn time. Misleading like a mofo. But anyway, but he lies so much that and the stupidity of him allows himself to lie where he's too damn dumb to know that the lie that he's told or the statement that he made is contradictory to a statement that he made as recently as a day or two ago. So he wrote about Joe Kent when he was affirmed last year about boasting about this person being this great warrior and he's going to be a great counterterrorism agent, da 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 da. And then he resigns because he is in conflict with the war that's taking place between Iran, U.S., and Israel, and now all of a sudden he's weak. But you forgot about what you had written about the man a year ago that's on your damn platform. Now you just completely contradict yourself. The next article. Or, I'm sorry, news clip. Again, Lawrence Donald talking about Donald Trump and his stupidity.
Afraid of anything. The man who has spent years afraid of the Epstein files and is still blocking the full release of the complete Epstein files. The man who wears silly hats because he's afraid his hair might be blown out of place. The man who's afraid of letting anyone see his natural skin color or his college transcript or his SAT scores. The man who's afraid of falling down the steps of Air Force One. And the man who was very, very afraid of being drafted into the United States Army during the Vietnam War. That man today said he's not afraid of anything. And it could not be more perfect that the question that provoked Donald Trump to tell the lie that he's not afraid of anything, included a reference to Vietnam.
The Iranian regime has told Sky News, if you put boots on the ground in Iran, it will be another Vietnam. Are you afraid of that?
No, I'm really not afraid of anything.
Iran's deputy foreign minister was asked by Sky News today what would happen if U.S. troops invaded Iran, and he said, quote, just read what happened in Vietnam. Donald Trump was so afraid of being drafted and sent to Vietnam in 1968 that he got a note from a doctor saying that his feet just couldn't take it. Those same feet that have covered miles and miles and miles of golf courses and continue to, just couldn't take it.
So again, I'm highlighting these news pressers that he does because he continually contradicts himself. And as I said, we're dealing with the arrogance. He's an arrogant white man suffering from white psychopathy, but he's stupid as fuck. He probably doesn't even know the history of Vietnam. But he also realized that he didn't go he didn't allow himself to be drafted into the war. Not because he was taking a political stance. It's because he was afraid to go. And he lied about him having bone spurs. He was walking all over the golf course, as Lawrence O'Donnell was saying. But the Iranians are making a reference to the potential of damage that could take place, equaling it to what took place when the United States went into Vietnam. And they stayed in Vietnam for over 10 years, 8 years. How long was the Vietnam War? That's right. I think it was 10 years. Yeah. 1955 to 1975. 10 years. And they had no intentions on being a part of that war for that long. But they were arrogant again in their behaviors, thinking that they was going to go in and beat down some small people who they said were backward and unlearned and rice farmers, and they had all kinds of derogatory names to say about the Vietnamese. When they stepped down into those territories and invaded their country, the little small rice farmers tore their backsides up. It had gotten so bad they had to flee out their country, and they left all the military equipment behind. That's how badly beaten they were getting that's how badly they were getting their asses beat in Vietnam. And the Iranians were making the same reference that is the potential, because Iran is not a very forgiving territory. And again, you're fighting a people who have pride. They've been in existence. They have a citizen, they have an existence of 5,000 years civilization. So you think they're just going to allow somebody who's been in existence barely for 250 years is going to come in and just take over their territory? Please. It's the arrogance of white people, thinking that they can come in and just do anything they wish because they think they have this military power. Here's a story, anecdotal story. And then we'll be closing out in the next 10 minutes. The area where I'm from, when I was growing up, there's a brother in our neighborhood, big brother, about stood about 6'3", maybe 6'4", go about 280, big dude. And he knew that because of his size that people were intimidated by him. You walking around with someone who's that big and with the temperament that he can beat the world, has the tendency to bully a lot of people. One night, as we were hanging out in front of a club, as we did, in the street that is located where the club is located, when it got crowded, and the club let out or whatever, people would stop in the middle of the street or stop their cars in the middle of the street, and they would have a little conversation, and then they go on the way. They wasn't blocking up traffic too bad, but the cars behind them would of course would be stopped while they were having this conversation. It was something that we did, and it was just part of the scene. Well, it just so happened that the brother that I was referencing was behind the car of a sister who was she was driving the car and she had stopped. She saw someone who was just walking out the club, and then she stopped and had about a maybe a minute, less than a minute conversation with the person. So the brother was become frustrated. He was honking his horn, da da da. He got frustrated enough where he got out of his car, went to the sister's car, opened up her car door, and pulled her out the door by her neck, lifted her up out of the seat and grabbed her by her neck and threw it on the ground. It just so happens that the sister was riding with her brother, who wasn't a big dude at all, but he was fairly decent size, but he had, in comparison to the brother who pulled the sister out the car, he was in no way in comparative to him. This brother approached him while he was accosting his blood sister, tapped him on the shoulder, and hit him and knocked his ass out. Laid him out in the middle of the street. He was laid out for about a good 5-10 seconds. So he, of course, he gets up. He's angry now because he pretended that he didn't know who hit him. He knew exactly who hit him, and he knew exactly why he was being hit. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew he was in the wrong. Now the system, you can say that she was in the wrong too, but the thing is, he had no right to accost her and pull her out the car by her neck. I mean, that's complete and total abuse. But the point I'm making here is that was the United States. The brother who pulled the sister out the car, that's the United States. Iran is the brother who knocked him out. So we're thinking that because United States is this big bad country with all this military might, that those who that other countries are just going to bow down to United States will. That shit ain't happening no more. All of a sudden, you're beginning to see that no one is riding with this country anymore. And that's time you got to put up or shut up. You're beginning to look like nothing but a paper tiger now. Because you spent years in Iraq and you spent years in Afghanistan, and the war that you have been going into with Israel has the potential of lasting not 3 weeks like this idiot, or 3 days like this idiot of a president made reference to. It has the potential for lasting for a while, because I said last time I was on my show, Iran ain't playing. A country with a 5,000 year history, a 5,000 year civilization, you think they just going to bow down to you? So now he's starting to panic. The things that he was anticipating and expecting to happen is not going his way now. Now he wants to go after the NATO countries and saying, we need help. This is in Politico. Remember what Pete Hegseth has said, that United States, that things are going as planned, and the United States has Iran on the run, and the dignitaries are hiding underground, and all this other crazy shit that he's lying about. As they say, and they're lying liars that lie. Politico says, never heard him. This is the headline. Never heard him so angry. Trump is furious that the global allies aren't pitching in Iran. President Donald Trump on Tuesday fumed at longtime American allies, he says, aren't doing enough to help the U.S. and Israel in this war against Iran, now arguing that their assistance was never needed after spending days publicly requesting their help. So again, he was saying, well, we're going to go do this ourselves. But now all of a sudden he needs help from the NATO alliances. because of the fact that we have had such military success, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did, he wrote on his True Social platform. Likewise, Japan, Australia, or South Korea. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far the most powerful country anywhere in the world, we do not need the help of anyone. Well, why are you asking for their help? Because Australia said, no, we ain't sending no ships. Japan said, no, we ain't sending no ships. South Korea said, no, we ain't sending shit. You got yourself into this, you get yourself out. We used to say, when we were just, doing certain activities, we used to make the reference that you saddled this horse, now you got to ride it. You jumped out the window on this shit. Now you have got to deal with the consequences that are coming with your stupid mistake. And he has to boast about him being tough. You're going to be tough. We're the United States, we're tough. All the other presidents, they were afraid of Iran. No, they weren't afraid of Iran. They were just smart. Did you realize that you haven't any understanding of why Bibi Netanyahu wanted Trump over Kamala Harris? There were 3 other presidents: Clinton, Bush, Obama. And if you want to throw in Daddy Bush, all of them knew that what was the potential if they went into war with Iran. They already knew that that would be a tough way to go. That would be a difficult battle or a difficult conflict to be entered into, because Netanyahu had been lying about the potential of Iran invading or going to war with Israel or threatening Israel. He's been lying about this shit for over 40 years. And he's lied about the potential of Iran having these nuclear weapons and the potential of them building these nuclear bombs and the potential of them threatening the Middle East and all this other shit. Bibi Netanyahu has been perpetuating this shit, has been lying about this shit for 40 years. And his objective is to have Israel control the Middle East. That's his dream. And he's talking about controlling land from the Tigris and Euphrates down to the Nile River. He wants it all. But the other presidents knew that this would be a hazardous way to go if they went to war with Iran. And Netanyahu knew that Trump, not because he's tough, he knew that he was stupid enough to go to war. So he campaigned, or he was hoping and praying that the United States citizens were ill-informed enough to put this man back in the office. Again, this is why it's important for us to have critical thought, for us to read and stop sitting our butts down in front of these TV screens, listening to this propaganda bullshit that's being pumped into our heads every day on these platforms, on these media platforms like CNN, Fox News. Fox News is the worst. I mean, they will sit there and lie right in front of your face and spin a story in front of your face just so they can appease this white nationalist agenda. But all the previous presidents knew that with the potential of damage that this could impose. But Netanyahu knew that Trump was easily manipulative. They can manipulate him to go along with this war. So less than a year's time, the man's been in office for a year and some change, where he had sat out as a private citizen for a whole year and talked about Barack Obama was going to get the United States into war with Iran because he had no negotiating skills. And he forgets that again, that he puts this shit out in the airways. Y'all need to elect me as the president because I have these exquisite negotiating skills and I can negotiate with Iran and I can, whatever lie he could come up with. I won't get you in the war. And he's lying about he solved all these wars and these conflicts. I still don't know. I ain't seen the list yet. But you put him back in the office because you aren't capable of analytical thought, of critical thought. Now this man is threatening not only the sovereignty, the existence, the way of life in this country. He has the potential of destabilizing the entire region that is identified as the Middle East, which has the potential to reverberate across the entire world. Because we are illiterate in our thought, illiterate in our thinking. We don't read. We sit down in front of a TV and listen to bullshit day in and day out. And we allow this man to be elected back in as the head of state of this country. And he's fucking up everything. And I do literally mean that. I'm closing out with this. Democracy is self-government. And again, I thank you all for being a part of this show tonight. Those who came in. And I truly hope that you are part of the show tomorrow when my guests come in. This chapter is called Right and Wrong. And listen carefully. Please listen. There is the internal law of rightness. All action contrary to that is wrong. Rightness is the universal order and relation of the action of all bodies of matter in space, and by which law this human world is governed. Right is what to do. Wrong is what not to do. What to do and what not to do is the all-important problem of thought and act in each individual human life. What to do and what not to do relates and comprehends the entire public and private life of mankind. The law and life of a people are represented by the government and the social structure of that people, which show to the world the composite thoughts and acts of the private life of the people. The thoughts and acts in the private life of each one of the people contribute directly to the making of the government of the people, and for which the government of the world holds that one responsible through his own true self. National government is intended to preserve order among the people and to administer equal justice to all. But a government will not do that because the preferences and prejudices and self-interest concerning persons, parties, and classes have their responses in government officials. The government reacts to the people, their own feelings and desires. Thus, there is the action and reaction between the people and their government. Thus, there is the discontent, the discord, and the disturbance between the individual and the state under the outward appearance of government. To whom should blame and responsibility be charged? Blame and responsibility in a democracy should be charged mainly to the people, because they elect the representatives to govern them. If the individuals of a people will not select and elect the best and most able man or men to govern, let's put men, women, or persons to govern, then they must suffer the consequences of their own indifference, prejudice, collusions, or convenience at wrongdoing. It's going to be connivance. I'm sorry. Connivance, not convenience. My apologies. How can the wrong in government be made right? If that is possible, and it can be done. The government of a people can never be made to be an honest and just government by new political enactments, by political machines, or by mere public complaints and protests. Such demonstrations can, at best, give only temporary relief. The only real way to change the government is to first know what is right and what is wrong, then to be honest and just with oneself in determining what to do and what not to do. The doing of what is right and not doing what is wrong will develop self-government in the individual. Self-government in the individual will necessitate and result in self-government by the people, which is a true democracy. You need to become initiated in becoming self-critical thinkers, reading, being analytical about the things that are happening in this country and throughout the world. This is a global world now. We're not isolated the way we were decades ago. The world is wide open now. And we need to have an understanding of the role that this country and its citizens play on the world stage. And the only way to do that is to become readers and critical thinkers. It is necessary for us to stop being spoon-fed propaganda. We see what this has led us to. We have the potential of seeing the upheaval of an entire world, because they're saying that if this war continues to go on and Iran continues to be successful in hitting certain targets in Israel, Israel can immediately become frustrated and start launching nuclear weapons. If you go back and look at some of the episodes, the first show that I did with Baba Sam Reynolds, and the third one I did with Baba Sam Reynolds, he was reading the charts of the United States, and he had said every 80 plus years, or when certain global, or excuse me, not global, but certain arrangements, planetary arrangements in the sky, when they align certain ways, United States is always at war. And it's beginning to look again, well, United States is in war now, but this could be a conflict that could bleed over into other nations. But you need to prepare yourself for what the potential could be. Start reading. Stop being analytical. Stop being self-critical. Because there were 80 or 76 million people who pulled the lever to let this man back into office. knowing how much he fucked shit up the first time. It's quite ironic that when he was in office the first time in the month of March 2020, where the rampant of COVID was running wild, it could have been handled with more strategically if he wasn't so stupid and so arrogant and not willing to give information out and informing the country of what the potential was. He was worried about how that was going to damage his reputation. And here we are again, March 2026. Same stupid white man running the country with his arrogance and white psychopathy. I thank you for joining me again tonight, and I appreciate the time that you spent with me. I ask that you join me back here tomorrow, where we have our guest, Baba King Simon. The renowned numerologist is going to grace this platform, and we are going to have a great time again. But until then, until you meet me back here tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, take into these words that I've said tonight, the information that I prepared, and how I laid my argument down. Allow it to feed your spirit and your soul so you can make informed decisions going forward. You have the potential of influencing others in your behavior and the stance that you take. But you have to make the decision to make the change for yourself. And the change that you make for yourself can influence others to do the same. As Gandhi said, you be the change that you want to see in the world. And Michael Jackson said, you look into that mirror and you be the person that makes that change in the mirror. And when you do make that change for the best and the betterment of yourself, you have the potential of influence others to do the same. And we walk in that light, in that path, in that love, in that energy. So meet me back here tomorrow. My co-host will be back with me tomorrow as well, as we receive our guest, Baba King Simon, the numerologist, here on the Health Walk, live on Facebook and on YouTube, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. But until then, until we meet again tomorrow, peace and love all the time.